Hi, my name is Roman. I'm standing here near the Lake of Luzern, Switzerland, and I would like to share some thoughts with you about climate change and the protection of the climate. I would like to start by mentioning some facts stated in the IPCC report which was published last October. Climate change is happening. That's not new, we all know it. What is new in my view, what was published in the IPCC report is how urgent it is that we take climate action. The current emissions, the global CO2 emissions of the world, amount to 42 gigatons of CO2 emissions. Our remaining carbon budget, so the amount of CO2 emissions we can still emit to ensure that we don't cross the 1.5 degrees centigrade increase in global temperatures, is 420 gigatons of CO2 emissions. That's only 10 times our current annual CO2 emissions, and the CO2 emissions are still going up. That shows how urgent it is that we drastically reduce CO2 emissions, first of all and most drastically in the industrialized countries, and then also in developing countries. Another important aspect is how vulnerable we are to climate change. In the IPCC report, it is clearly stated that if we don't succeed in staying below the 1.5 degrees centigrade increase in global temperatures, there is a serious risk that ice sheets like in Greenland or Antarctica are melting. And what people often forget is how much in terms of sea level rise this might mean. In Greenland, for example, there is enough ice to increase the global sea level by 7 meters. And on top of that, there is increase in sea level because of the expansion due to the increased temperature. Of course, there's also much ice in Antarctica. If all melts, that's 70 meters. And people just don't understand or have forgotten that the sea levels in the past have been much higher than today. They have been 100 meters higher and more in the past. That was a long time ago, of course. Yet what we are doing now is increasing the temperature at an unprecedented scale. So we are just exposing all our coastlines. We have so many cities that are built near the sea to those rising sea levels, and that's just something we want to avoid. A third point I would like to mention is that all the statements that are made in the IPCC report are based on probabilities. And there are probabilities that climate change could also be much worse than is stated in the IPCC report. So if you follow the precautionary principle, we even need to be more careful than what's stated in the IPCC report. A fourth fact that is stated in the IPCC report, and this one is an encouraging one, that the energy transition necessary to reduce the global CO2 emissions to zero is already happening. And we know that millions of people have already taken action, exactly what needs to be done, having installed solar panels on the roof, having installed wind turbines, having switched their heating system to heat pumps, for example, or have changed their car to an electric car, or are reducing their energy consumption. Those voices, those people who have shown that the solutions are there and feasible, this has not been noticed well enough, and this has to change right now. What I therefore propose is that people from all age groups, all backgrounds, all over the world, stand up and protest for more climate action. The young people have shown the way. Greta Thunberg has gone on strike on August 20, 2018 and has initiated the current climate strike movement. And already before that there have been strikes at the first day of the conference where the Paris Agreement was adopted. And protests are again necessary now, and many protests are necessary. We do not only want to convince politicians. I'm convinced that if you want to find a solution, then we need to convince all people that climate action is urgently needed. So we need to go to protest, not just to convince politicians, yet to bring all people on board and make sure that this challenge of dramatic proportions is handled by humanity. What I propose is that, with reference to the Fridays for Future movement that was initiated by Greta Thunberg, we create a network of people supporting climate action called People for Future, and that people of all age groups, all backgrounds, can join this movement and can connect each other and strengthen each other until we have mobilized a large proportion and then hopefully also majority of people across the world to bring about the necessary change that is urgently needed to save our climate.